Well, first of all, let me say welcome. Thank you for doing this, by the way. I want to say that I am just happy to have you here. I remember years ago seeing some of your stuff when I was doing my ketogenic diet. Gosh, I bet it was 5, 6 years ago. I think because you've been doing this for a while. That's and been very inspirational. You got a great story, and so I think it'll be fun to kind of relate some of that stuff. And I kind of see that you're still going strong and it's getting better every year. It's kind of great to see
Yes.
another person that's like me, over 50 and still going strong. So Stephanie, if you don't mind, for the folks that may not be familiar with you, can you give us maybe a little 5-minute summary of your story? I know you have a really interesting, I know I had devastating knee injuries and bunch of surgeries as a result of that, and you were doing some, I guess, high-level skating and stuff like that. So can you give us a little bit of your background real quick, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. 52 going on 53. I started skateboarding in 1984, and I immediately got into a thing called vert skating. So I used to skate with Tony Hawk and those guys back in the day, and went over to tour in Europe, busted my knee in Sweden, which prompted me to stay a lot longer than just being a kid hanging out, and had 10 knee surgeries on my left knee, broke everything in the knee, everything. And at that time, a boyfriend at that time was like, oh, you should start working out because, you're going to, what affects your whole body is going to affect your knee health-wise. I started and got tired of living in Sweden, didn't want any more surgeries, moved back to the States, moved to Los Angeles. So that's where I'm at right now. And then my mother, so this is 12 years ago, was diagnosed with a glioblastoma. And they basically said, we don't think she's going to survive. So you got about 3 months. And I had heard of the ketogenic diet at that time. And I was like, okay, well, let's try that. And my brother and I, he started really aggressively, like because my mom was eating a lot of sugar. She was baking a lot. She had like a 40-pound bag of sugar in her kitchen, cabinet. And we took that all out. She resisted and fought it and was like, this isn't why I got sick. And then afterwards I was like, okay, well, because my brother is basically having her on a vegan diet. And I was like, oh, no. And because that's what they hear, you have cancer, meat gives you cancer, makes the cancer cells divide. So I was like, no, she's got to eat meat. She's got to eat a ton of fat and no carbs, no processed foods. So at that time, what I considered a ketogenic diet. Now, she did survive this glioblastoma, which is very, very rare. And you never hear me say that the ketogenic diet saved her life, because I just don't know exactly what did. I just know that that's what my brother and I did, is to sort of take away all the junk and apply a ketogenic diet. She's still alive today. Now, they did take out the tumor and they radiated her, and it started growing back just like they thought. And then when she was on a ketogenic diet, it just stopped growing. And that's my story. Oh, and then I was like, I'm going to try this. I had to do it with her to get her to do it, because she wouldn't do it unless I did it with her. And I was like, I don't want to do this diet. I'm not going to have any energy. And then I did it. And then 12 years down the line, I'm still doing it. I decided to do carnivore probably about a year and a half ago. Thanks to you, Sean, because I saw you on Joe Rogan. And I know you must hear that over and over and over again. And I saw you and I was like, that's the dumbest thing ever in my life. But here's the weird thing, is that I was almost doing it anyway, because I wasn't eating that many vegetables anyway. And I thought, well, let's just give it a try. So I did it for about 9 months. And then I started having electrolyte issues. And so I had no problem with avocado. So I put that back. And that's literally the only thing I've added back in was an avocado. And here I am today.
I mean, well, that's, first of all, it's great to hear about your mom still being here. I mean, the glioblastoma, we've had a couple people with that particular thing. Andrew, and I can't believe I'm blanking on Andrew's last name. Some of you guys remember that. Some similar story. And I think he was an astrocytoma, but regardless, the brain tumor that's done well. You've been very inspirational. I mean, as someone who's 52, you obviously don't look 52, you look much younger. You're still just killing it, as far as those things go, and very motivating. And I think it's interesting. I wonder what, when you did decide to go from just a strict keto to a more carnivore based approach. And I think there's a lot of people in here that find that, not necessarily only strict meat, but I mean, when they eat mostly meat, it seems to be even more beneficial. Did you notice any kind of, any change? I mean, maybe it's a little bit more protein, maybe it's just a higher quality nutrition overall. I think it is, but what are your thoughts on that? Is it?
For me to transition from keto to carnivore,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the only thing that I literally changed was taking out vegetables, anything plant source, like anything. That was it. I didn't go up in protein, and I just kept my fats really high, kept it a ketogenic version of a carnivore diet, or like a high fat carnivore. That was the only thing I changed. And the things that changed were like what I didn't realize on eating like spinach, for example, that I gave myself kidney crystals. So like I was pounding down the spinach and I was telling people to eat spinach. So those things were beneficial and advantageous for me to go from a ketogenic cruciferous vegetable plant source diet over to more carnivore with just keeping an avocado. So the things that were beneficial was clearing up some of the issues with the plants, especially with the kidneys.
Yeah, a lot of people see that, and it's very surprising because this is a thing people say, well, it can't be vegetables; they're so good for us. I mean, I was just reading somebody sent me a thing on this tribe in Ecuador, and I can't believe the name. I can't remember the name, but they are just incredibly healthy people. They eschew all vegetables basically. They'll eat some fruit and they'll eat a lot of meat, and basically that's their diet. But they're very careful not to eat vegetables. And of course, the article was talking about phytonutrients they're getting from fruit, but they ignore the fact that they're eating 1.5 pounds of meat a day. They kind of comment on that, but then they just say, well, it must be the phytonutrients in a variety of the fruits. But interesting to see that you take out vegetables and people think you're crazy because there's people out here that says no, vegetables are great for us, and so it's interesting to see more and more people do that. How does your knee do these days? I mean, what you've got? I mean, I assume your ligaments were gone, ACL was gone. I imagine probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that big midline incision there. I don't know. I'm just trying
And
to.
all the way around too, up here. Yeah, the knee's destroyed. It's over. It's done.
Does it have any stability to it, or is it pretty loose?
No, it's I've worked as hard as I can or have in the past. I really worked hard to build up the muscle around the knee joint. And so for the first, I'd probably say, because I did this on my 26th birthday, the skateboard fall, and I had a lot of complications. I had an infection in the joint, and it destroyed my leg further, destroyed the cartilage, what was left over. So my medial meniscus is completely gone. Most of the cartilage is completely, it died. They had to cut it out. And I have bone-on-bone contact. So today I cannot run or jump or lunge, squat. And I've just stabilized the joint. So no, it's not completely loose for the work that I've done to build up as much muscle as I can, even to the point where this whole, I call it Sharona, ever since that stuff has gone down, and there's helicopters flying outside my window because 6 blocks away they went and burned everything down. But besides that, I was like, I need a leg extension machine because I can't squat. I can do particular small exercises, but I need something where I can do leg extensions. So I have that, which has kept me from completely losing the muscle that I've worked so hard on in the last probably 10 years. So I wore a size 00, the muscles had atrophied so bad, and now I wear a size 4 in women. So that's a lot of pant sizes gone up by just finding ways around the injury.
Yeah, it's again, we all been kind of stuck with well, for those of us that exercise, we've kind of been stuck a little bit. In my house, fortunately, I've built up a gym from decades of getting equipment, so I'm pretty good on what I've got. So it's been pretty lucky for me.
That's so good.
I don't have any major injuries, which is also interesting. But some people are asking about sort of minimum fat amount you like to get? How much protein do you eat? How much fat? Do you keep track of that at all? Where are you on that?
Yeah, I
Sort of
mean,
thing?
I've been doing the same thing for so many years that it's pretty easy to explain. So this is definitely different from what you're doing. So I eat probably about 240 grams of fat a day, and I'm 5'3". I weigh about 124 pounds. Body fat's about 13-14%. And I eat about 50 to 55 grams of protein per day. Now, if I go higher, it doesn't really affect my glucose numbers, but I'm pretty good around 55 grams of protein a day. So it's pretty ketogenic.
Sure. And what do you mind? What do you weigh, Stephanie? I don't know. Maybe that's too
Uh,
personal a question.
no, nothing is personal, Sean. You can ask me anything. Um, I weigh 124 pounds.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So this is
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, you're definitely lean and definitely maintaining muscle, which is great to
yeah,
see. You know, it's
and totally natural, still menstruating woman.
well, it's also cool. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is because we had Dr. Tofia Clemens from the sort of ketogenic, am I saying that right? Paleomedicina, sorry, group, talking about similar with protein. You know, they're saying they typically recommend like 55 grams of protein a day, something along those lines. But they have very low amounts of food too, like 400 grams total food, which, you know, I heard that and I was like, I couldn't do that. But I mean, I'm obviously a lot bigger. I'm 200, right now I'm about 230 pounds. So I'm basically not quite twice what you are, very close. You know, I saw you put something on macadamia nuts being the only nut that is still ketogenic. What is the thought
No,
behind that? Or no, maybe not.
no, when I first started talking about the ketogenic diet back in the day, I used to literally, and I didn't actually, it's so weird how when I think back, I said, no nuts, period. No nuts. And I said, no nuts, no cheese, and no caffeine. That's what I said. People know me for that. And they like got all over me for that for a very long time until Carnivore came around. um, and early on, I started working with people who had histamine issues, eczema, and I didn't know much about it about 8 years ago. But it seemed like when I would cut these things out of people's diets, they do fare a lot better. So then I was still having people do all of the cruciferous vegetables, and now I'm really just push more of a carnivore diet more than anything. It's like I don't even think vegetables anymore. But at that time, I said no nuts. But then people are like, you know, I have this particular job where I can't stop, and you know, is there one nut I can have? And I said, okay, macadamia nuts. So then people started just eating droves of macadamia nuts and gaining weight on them. So probably for the last 2 years, I've said no macadamia nuts. But people hear me say from, you know, 2-year-old videos, which is like a sliver in time, as you know, as we get older, that I'm still saying macadamia nuts, but I'm saying no nuts.
What are your thoughts on dairy? Are you equally sort of thinking dairy is a problem?
No, yes and no. I mean, because I'm pushing more of a keto, high fat carnivore diet than people who are drinking raw milk. But there's two things, right? I'm really, really a big supporter of people who have histamine issues. A lot of people are reacting to dairy, no matter what dairy it is. I mean, I eat pounds and pounds of butter. I tried kefir myself and I started having a histamine response to it, so I had to cut it out. But I tried. I tried grass-fed raw cream, histamine response, cut it out. So it's not like I'm opposed to it. It's just that if people are doing more of a ketogenic version and trying to reach ketosis, then I'm like, I suggest not to do milk. But other than that, I don't tell them to cut out the other dairy, especially with the butter.
Well, let's talk a little bit about histamine because there was a couple questions, or at least one question in the chat about histamine. What are your thoughts on what's provoking histamine? How do we know we're having a histamine response, and what do we do about it?
I believe it's from leaky gut, and people have lower levels of diamine oxidase production within the small intestine, and their lifestyles and their health issue, their prior issues, everything they brought there. I mean, it's not just, people think it's all about the diet, but it has a lot to do with people's lifestyles, exposures to toxins, glyphosate, anything that's going to drill holes in the gut wall. and amalgam fillings, and people, a lot of women are on all different types of HRTs for their hot flashes, and that's creating. I just had a consultation prior with a woman who's got severe candida, and she's telling me about all the HRTs she's on. So there's a lot of different reasons why people are having histamine response. What the causes could be back to when they're a child, back to the vaccinations, back to the, it could be for various different reasons why people develop a weak gut wall and having a difficult time with clearing out their histamine. So that's my take on it.
What does a histamine response in your view typically look like? Somebody was asking, what is it? How do you describe it?
Yeah, it's all different types of things, from flushing and itching and rashes and mucus and things that look like seasonal allergy, to puffiness and watery faces and lymphatic issues, to loose stool and floating stool and gas, and I mean, yeast pouring out of them. And, it's literally just almost anything. Like, we really don't know the far extent of what constantly being inflamed with too much histamine does. But the common things I see are skin issues, water balance issues, which could be electrolytes, but they're like puffy in the face, and they get itchy scalp. Some people get the mucus buildup. Some people get thick in the throat when they try to swallow, and anything that's not anaphylactic, that's just aggravating once they eat. Like 20 to 2 hours after, or sometimes even 24 hours later, people are having reactions.
And what do you do about it? So what's the solution for most people, or what do you find? Is there something, is there a food you should eat, should not eat? Is there a supplement? How do you deal with that?
I think everyone's different in the context of, yes, and antibiotics. Yeah, sorry about that. I think everybody's different in the sense of people react differently to different foods. So there are foods that can create more high histamine reactions. So people are, say, doing carnivore. I explain to people to rotate their meats a little bit more. I know that you might be more of the red meat camp, but some people just react to it. I tell people that if they do eat red meat, no, I mean, that's the main meat they should be eating. But if they're having a problem with or any type of meat, I explain to people, try to get it as fresh as possible, to not sit and put it in the refrigerator and eat it 5 days later. So I'm like, cook it, freeze it, and then unthaw, eat it. I noticed that a lot of people are reacting to bone broths, so for the glutamate and the oxalates. So especially the glutamate, people are having histamine response. So I'll say do a meat broth, and I'll say cook it, freeze it, and don't slow cook it like you would a bone broth, because people are having massive histamine reactions to even a meat broth. So for people who are severe histamine and they react to everything, I tell them to rotate, keep things super fresh. And when it comes to plant source foods, I mean, it's a ton of stuff. Well, people can react to, the list of foods can be from your cheeses to your dairy products, to your butter, your ghee, to lemon, and to like citrus and cinnamon and nuts. And there's a fish that's not fresh caught fish is really bad. People have bad histamine on that. Avocados, vegetables, spinach, all that kind of stuff.
Somebody was asking about, maybe people initially going on to a high fat approach. Some people initially gain weight, and then I just listening to your numbers. I mean, if you're getting like 240 grams of fat and 50 grams of protein or so, I mean, that's, what is that, like 2,500, something like that, somewhere in
Yep.
that neighborhood of calories. So that's by no means a small amount for a 128-pound person.
124.
124. Sorry, my bad. So I don't want to correct you for an extra 4 pounds, but so I mean, you're not starving yourself, obviously. But is there some point where people can overdo it? I mean, we saw the ketogenic diet where there was a period of time where people were just, chugging heavy cream and eating sticks of butter and that sort of approach to try to get as much fat in there. What's the best way to get your fat in, and can you have too much fat?
I think that getting in too much fat is contextual, and there's different kinds of fats, and it's how the body responds to it. So here's the thing, we break it down into a couple of things with insulin and your glucose response. That's a big problem. So if people are not, I mean, for some reason, I still don't understand why people don't talk about the science of ketogenesis. But what I've noticed with clients over the years is that if they can moderate and balance their insulin and become insulin sensitive and keep their stress down, and have no problem with gallbladder or histamine response, they have no problem pounding out 400 grams of fat, depending on the size and male, female, and not gain weight. In fact, actually lower their body fat by doing this. Absolutely. Over the years, many people. It's the disaster hits the road when you cannot regulate your insulin, you cannot regulate your A1C, your glucose, your stress, your gallbladder is just freaking you out. And people are having, a lot of women have issues with their gallbladder. They can't do high fat until they resolve the gallbladder issue through either using things like ox bile for the short term. Sometimes people try to do flushes if they have biliary sludge or gallbladder sludge or stones. People with no gallbladder can do high fat. They just have to do it very slowly and get their body to put in another part of the biliary system, the gallbladder, hold the gallbladder salts. But just to eat high fat itself and gain weight, no, I haven't seen that for people who do things, who can regulate all those systems. Now, for people who don't regulate those systems, it's a mess. Yes, you can gain weight, you can get sick, you can actually aggravate the gallbladder that's already sludgy. You can have a histamine response by pounding down fats that your body doesn't agree with. You can take the wrong kind of fats that do nothing. And yeah, I've seen a lot of problems with people eating high fat when they do things incorrectly, that just start eating, especially nut butters and cream, and, you know, their body's not agreeing with it. And that's an inflammatory response. They're not going to lose any weight if their body's having an inflammatory response. Of course, you know, their insulin's not going to regulate, their blood sugar's not going to regulate because they're going through an inflammatory response.
Yeah. So what do we do for, like, say we got like somebody who's type 2 diabetic, pre-diabetic, and they have, problems with glycemic control, and then you say we're going to go to a high fat approach. How do we manage that? Because if the glucose is continuously high, some people say that then the fat becomes problematic in that situation. How do you deal with that?
Yes. So I've worked with many diabetics, type 1 and type 2. Over the years, many. I mean, I've worked with thousands of people because I've just been doing this for so long. Fell off the radar at one point, but was still always there. And you run across a lot of people who are insulin resistant, type 1 and type 2 and type 1. So basically it's your lifestyle. And people who are type 2 diabetics, it has to do with, it's not just the food you eat, it's the lifestyle that you live. People are stressed out, people are toxic, they are chemically toxic, and they don't sleep. And insulin resistance is amplified when people don't sleep well. And people are on a bunch of pharmaceuticals, and their body can't regulate no matter what. They start off in life very young, not regulating their body, not reaching any type of homeostasis. So when I do my consultations, it's literally about 2 seconds about food, and let's talk about your life. Let's talk about who you are. Let's talk about from where you came. Let's talk about your parents. Let's talk about if you were vaginally birthed or if you were breastfed. Let's talk about how strong your gut wall is, if you've been on any type of antibiotic treatment and any type of pharmaceuticals that will destroy your gut wall. Let's talk about, your sleep quality, your exercise. And just because I can talk to people, and Sean, you may know this, like in 2 seconds, you figure them out. You figure their personality out. I mean, you see what's going on today. People are freaking out, and people don't know how to deal with stress. They want to bury their head in the sand and just eat or just do stuff or drink or take, certain types of things that are exogenous, like, that are not good for their body. And I meet a lot of people who are type 2s who drink a lot. People who are type 1s, I mean, they fare really great. They can really regulate that blood sugar on a high fat diet, ketogenic or carnivore or high fat, but they have to make those lifestyle changes. So it's like, know what food that your body can tolerate. And like I said, people have a lot of food sensitivities. So you're not going to keep eating food that's, doesn't agree with your body and expect your body to regulate. So when it comes to type 1 and type 2s, they all go over 200 grams of fat without a problem. I've had so many people regulate their insulin and their A1C and their glucose without creating any type of secondary problems. It just takes a lot of work. I always say that if you're going to do this, it's like training for the Olympics, because if you do one thing wrong, and Sean, I've said in many of my videos, that this whole ketogenic high fat thing can frack you up big time. So I'm not the one who's like, you got to do it. It's the best thing ever. Just do it like this. It's so easy and it's fabulous. I never say that. In fact, people know me to almost sound, they're always like, you're always saying what's wrong with things. Why don't you say what's right? And I'm like, because you guys need to know, you can easily, hurt your own body thinking that things are so easy. You're not disciplined. I just had a consultation with a woman where she's like, oh my God, it's so hard to go to bed early. And I'm just like, okay, first world problems. I always say to people, that's not hard. What's hard is poverty. Illness is hard. So I don't know if that was long-winded, but yeah, it's not a problem if they find out how much fat that their body can tolerate in the context of their gallbladder or their lifestyle. And if people have any type of issues with their fat, I'm like, eat slowly. People eat and run out the door. And you time everything out. Follow a circadian rhythm. Just know how your biology is working in a 24-hour day.
Let's talk about that. I think circadian stuff, there's a lot more data coming out on there on that. I know Sachin Panda and some of the other ones have done some research on that. What do you find works within the framework of a ketogenic or a meat-based diet with circadian biology? If you play with that, and do you find that one eating pattern, meal frequency, meal timing works better than others?
Okay, so everything to me comes down to how much damage your body has gone through over time. So people who are hypoglycemic don't fare well on intermittent fasting. They just don't. And I've got people just crashing like crazy because they hear that because it's trending. And I think the biggest problem is not understanding what your individual health issues are according to your 24-hour day. So for example, it really depends what time. If you wake up at 3 o'clock to go to work, that's going to be different from somebody who wakes up at 5:30. And when it comes to the circadian rhythm, but I can say that, and I've always said this: if you have a very demanding life and you have any type of chronic fatigue, hypoglycemia, hypothyroid, Hashis, that the whole eating twice a day doesn't fare well with people. And this is what I've noticed with clients. And so I'll have them get up and eat. And and it could be just something small, right? Just something small to sort of allow that adrenal response not to take over. And then I might, to get all that fat in, instead of just eating all day, I might have people just have a meat broth and add some fat to it and sip on that a few hours later. And then they'll have a lunch. These are people who've got severe energy crisis, and people, because a lot of women, their hair's just falling out. I'm just going to break. And menstrual cycle, mess. I lost my period. I hear that a lot on Carnivore, where people are doing low fat, high protein. And I get a lot of those people because I talk about it so much. And I lost my cycle. I'm not ovulating. My hair's falling out. And so I'll put them on something where they might eat something small every couple of hours, even if it's just getting in fat and some broth, instead of just going hours without eating. So that doesn't really answer your question. So when it comes to the circadian rhythm, that's not a circadian rhythm. But what I do have people do to try to stop eating around 6 when the sun goes down, so they can allow melatonin production to start to rise and put their body into this nice, chill, homeostatic balance and fall asleep. And so they can get into more deep sleep patterns or deep REM cycle patterns throughout the night. And, it's not just food. It's like, I really don't like for people to work out at night, because I notice that their cortisol just inverts and they're awake at night. So I try to get them to get their last meal done by 6. and try to relax and get off their televisions, because I do so many consultations with people who will sit and end their night with television. I try to get them to sit outside with their family under candlelight and have a conversation, or just lower the light and go to bed. So that would be sort of the circadian rhythm. I try to get people to work out before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I know there's studies that's saying that you peak at 4, but when it comes to people who are so stretched out and never sleep well and they don't breathe correctly, and they don't exercise, or they don't exercise correctly, and they have injuries, and they're taking pharmaceuticals, and they're taking alcohol to calm themselves down. I try to just tighten that all up to a circadian rhythm and get them to sleep by 9:30 or 10, including their meals, so they've cleared out all this food by at least 3 hours before they go to bed.
Let me ask you about some certain foods. Do you find that things like gelatins or collagen, organ meats, how about bacon? What are your thoughts on those types of food?
Oh yeah, I forgot to say that a lot of people, when we were talking about histamine, they react to aged meats. So I can eat bacon all day long, not a problem. So I just try to get people to get, today I bought a meat slicer. So I'm just like, get some pork belly and slice it yourself and throw it on a pan. It's the best bacon ever. So you don't have to even deal with the supermarket, cured bacon. But yeah, bacon all day long. I try to get people to get fattier cuts of bacon. You said bacon and what else? Sorry.
Well, things like gelatins and
Oh yeah.
collagen type things, and then also organ meats, because I think a lot of people have different thoughts on those things.
Yeah. I love organ meats. They are a beautiful gift. Yes, I have people eat organ meats, especially with the histamine responses and the lack of enough diamine oxidase. So I'd say probably 90% of the people that I have consume thymus and kidney instantly see results with their histamine. So let's say with Carnivore Yogi, her daughter could not sleep throughout the night. And I was like, get thymus, because I took thymus and like, boom, my histamine response starts to go down. And so her daughter, for the first time in a very long time, has been able to sleep through the night. And so she didn't like the thymus. So I had her deep fried in lard, and it was no problem. So yes, I love the organ meats. Now I am in my 50s, and I started noticing around like 48 that I was starting to read like this. And I was like, no. And as soon as I started eating liver, like it probably took about 8 months. After 8 months of eating liver, my eyes corrected. Could that be a placebo effect? Maybe, but most likely not, because it's been like progressively getting worse that I couldn't see. And my 20/20 was going away, and when I started eating liver, and so instantly my nails got hard because of the biotin. So I'm just like, all right, let's do this. So yeah, I really push organ meats for those reasons. Heart and kidney. The things I push the most are brain, heart, kidney, tongue, thymus. Yeah, all day. And the bacon, yeah. Pork, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about, because you're obviously still training. What about, how do you approach exercise? Is this something every day? Do you have a certain intensity level? Is it a frequency type of thing? How are you doing with that?
I'm a workout junkie. I'm like a super athlete. I'm like you. You're like the other half of me. Like, I work out 6 days a week. So like I work out, I'm like beast mode. Like I go solid, full, range of motion, pull-ups all day, 10, boom. In my 50s, crushing guys. They don't even like to do pull-ups next to me because they get uncomfortable, because they swing and kick and do these small little things. And push-ups, one-arm push-ups. I started learning about 2 years ago. Handstand push-ups, no wall, head to the ground, like handstand push-ups. So, yeah, I work out hard. I work out consistently. I was working out 7 days a week because I loved it so much. Not sore, not tearing down, not hurting nothing. Like my body's like, yes, all day long, until Sharona. And now I work out in my apartment. And then I also bought a horse a couple months ago. So, it feels like all of a sudden my circadian rhythm's gone down the toilet because I leave the ranch so late. So I work and then I work out from home. And then I'm there at the ranch, either walking him or I'm riding him for miles. So I'm just busy all day long, physically, all day. I don't even sit down. When I live in LA, I never, like, people didn't know I even have a car because I was always riding my bike every day.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm not far from you. I'm down here in Orange County, so I mean, I know it's kind of everybody has a car because it's kind of like the thing to do here. But it's nice to see that you're kind of getting away from that. That's really good.
Yeah, and I do resistance training. I do calisthenics. Like I do both. So both, I'm very much into resistance training, weight training. I'm not a yoga person. I'm just not. I like to train and I like to train real good. Yeah, real hard.
I guess I was still asking about, do you do anything with like collagen, gelatins, that type of stuff? Is that part of your
I used to all the time. I used to buy collagen all the time, and then it became really trendy. And I don't like things when they get trendy, for the wrong reasons, and they think it's like the miracle cure. And I started noticing people are having histamine response to it, so I just have them cut it out for now. I have everybody eliminate everything, and people can't eat avocado, so they do a full carnivore diet, and I try to guide them through it, and I try to get them to get their electrolytes through potassium from meat and from meat broth, and sometimes that's not enough. They're still having swelling issues and heart palps and tingly fingers, and so they might do a potassium citrate. But when it comes to collagen itself, I'm having people cut it out for now because it's just too much. I've had too many people have a histamine response to it.
Interesting.
Otherwise,
Okay.
it's great. Otherwise, it's great.
Yeah. So if in absence of a histamine response, then it's fine to do, I suppose. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you eat? What are you currently eating? So what does your diet look like on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, I am the luckiest person on the planet because I bought 70 pounds of all types of parts of the animal. So I bought heart, and I bought a lot of heart and sirloin, and I bought 50 pounds of liver. And my friend, he sent me elk and deer and pork, pastured pork, and fresh caught salmon he caught himself and everything. And he sent me another 50 pounds of that, and everything he sent me, he killed himself. So that's what I'm eating: pork and beef. And the only thing I need to get is more thymus. But pork, beef, all types of beef, everything. I had to go to my neighbor and I was like, I have to get a freezer too. I was like, can you take some of this beef? I've got too much of it, because there's a ranch near me and it was fresh slaughtered. Literally in a bag. Some of it was just in plastic bags and then straight to freezer cooler with ice, straight to my freezer. And so those are the foods I'm eating: pork and elk and deer and beef. And that's the most of it right now. Yeah. And salmon.
How about did you say anything about seafood? Do you do much seafood at all?
Oh, it's salmon, fresh caught salmon.
Okay. Yeah. So wild salmon for
that's it.
Do you what about cooking? Do you have a preferred cooking method? Do you think that some people think if you char your meat, it's going to cause cancer, or are you worried about those types of things, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't cook my meat very high. And anyway, I never did. I like it almost on the rare side. So for myself personally, and I use an air fryer all the time because like my life's so busy, it's so easy to put in the air fryer. So I don't use any oil. I just put it in there. Yeah, I don't cook my meat very much. I just lightly cook it and eat it and run out the door with a lot of fat.
Do you ever do like sausages and stuff like that? I mean, some people like, some people that like, there's people that don't like organ meats, but there's some sausages, like I'll point out things like Braunschweiger or liverwurst where it's kind of mixed in. Do you ever use that, or are you an advocate of that sort of way of doing it?
Well, first of all, I got a million recipes on how to make organ meats more palatable. So that's not a problem. It's just, getting people past the idea. But sausage, to be honest, I make it easy. I just eat some meat and some fat, walk out the door. I'm not trying to have sausage, and I'm not like, oh, I have to have bacon. I have to have it. I have to have like a breakfast meal. I just eat. So I encourage people to not do this, to not be consumed by food. And I always say that food is not your entertainment, and that it's just medicine and it's nourishment, and just make it simple in your mind, because so many people want recipes. And the thing is, I got a book deal in the whole ketogenic explosion time, and I have not released it. I've been on the fence about even releasing all this stuff. People know me as not really being so consumed. I'm the worst businesswoman, Sean, ever, because I've had so many situations to make more money, and I've just been like, nah, I don't care. So I tore up my book deal. I didn't like all the stupid ketogenic books that were coming out. I was like, this is stupid. Ketogenic diet's a joke now, and I don't want to put out these recipes. And I didn't want people to become addicted to like faux carbs, even though like my earlier videos were about that. Because I mean, you evolve, right? You evolve. The energy Stephanie has turned into someone. She's so, what is it? She's so narcissistic, and I'm just like, no, I'm just old. No, I'm kidding. I'm just getting older, as you know, where your attitude changes when you're online on how you deal with things. But when it comes to like sausages and stuff like that, I'm just like, what a pain in the ass. Like, you can if you want to, but I'm like, nah. And I don't believe that. I talked to Ken, and Ken reached out to me a long time ago. He lives very near to my mother. She lives in Tennessee. That's how I got to know Ken, and he was like, yeah, it's better that people eat this processed carnivore food rather than clean, and like he was saying like Oscar Mayer hot dogs and stuff, and I was like, okay, no, not really, because I think that it's not that expensive to be mostly carnivore or carnivore. I don't think it's expensive at all. And I think that people waste their money on a bunch of junk. So I don't think that sausage should be something that could make your carnivore diet complete. No. If you want it, sure. I'm just like, don't have it with sugar and nitrates and junk. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you, I'm just wondering, are you much of a person that tests yourself a lot as far as labs and other studies? Do you do a lot of that stuff?
I did recently because I developed melasma on my skin. Can't really see it that much anymore because I took it off. So it's hyperpigmentation. And they were saying it's a hormonal thing. So I went and did I had to bug my OBGYN to get sex hormonal panels done over and over and over again to still find like nearly perfect reproduction hormonal like balances. So when it comes to the whole cholesterol, I think I had a check like 5 years ago. It was super high. I don't care. I encourage people not to test their cholesterol numbers. So what else am I going to test? Like, what do I need to test?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, like things like bone mineral density and stuff like that. I know some of the things that start to really come up. It'd be interesting to see.
I mean, I could just to know what the numbers are, but for me, if there's a concern, please test. If you feel like you might have a thyroid issue, please go out and do a full thyroid panel and do it several times. If you feel like something's going on with your hormones, if you have endometriosis, PCOS, any type of reproductive issues, please go get tested. If you're having any type of inflammatory response of your digestive system, please go get a camera up your butt and go get it tested, or polyps or anything like that. If you feel like there is adrenal insufficiencies or any type of disease or cancer or anything that's worrisome, if you're having any type of heart disease, but or to people who need to get the ultrasound test for their gallbladder and stuff. But when it comes to checking my bone density, I don't think I'd be able to work out the way I did if I was having any type of, I would have to be like menopausal and having easy, like fracture. I mean, I ride a horse, I fell off the horse. Like, I don't know, my horse is huge. He's, he's almost 17 hands, and to go that high onto the ground and not break anything, it didn't even cross my mind to do bone mineral density.
How does your knee feel these days after all the surgery? Because a lot of people in your situations, I couldn't tell you how many women that I've seen that were 50s, just women in their 50s in general that need knee replacement, mostly because their metabolic health is so awful. But a lot of people with post-traumatic issues develop a lot of arthritis. Does anybody approach you saying, "Hey, you need a knee replacement," or does it function well? How much pain do you have with that thing?
Yeah, I mean, the last doctor that I had, I used to live in Sweden, so all my surgeries were done in Sweden. He was like, "You need a knee replacement." I was like, "No, that's never going to happen." And they wanted to do one more surgery, and I was like, "It's time to come back home to the States. I miss it." I was gone almost 17 years combined, because I was touring as a pro skater. But my knee is, I think because of my dietary change at 40, I have spared myself more debilitating pain. Now, if I walk too long, I'm not going to lie, in the winter, which is probably one of the biggest aversions why I don't like cold weather. Like, we had the rains here go on for a minute, and my knee was so irritated, and I didn't even want to step like 5 steps. It just hurts so bad. It aches. Actually, I always describe it as if somebody lit a match and was getting it closer and closer and closer to your knee, and it starts burning, and people are talking to me, like sometimes I'll be at the gym and I'll train my legs a little bit too hard, and they'll be talking to me, and I'll just start getting antsy because we're standing, because it's burning and it hurts, and I'm looking for some place to sit down. I have a really, really bad knee. But the difference between myself and I think a lot of other people is that I know my limits, and I'm not going to go under the limit because, I've become lazy because it hurts. I don't want to lose the hard work that I've put into keeping my body in balance, as you know. And so I think a lot of people, how do I say this? I think as modern humans, we've become incredibly lazy, and people are looking for excuses. So I'll meet people with bad knees, and I'm just like, it's like having an abscess in your tooth when I listen to it. I'm listening to every excuse, and it feels like my head's hurting. And I'll literally go, here's my knee, here's my age. And I'm starting to realize that not that many people have that type of personality that I have. If you have an injury, you can always work around that injury, always. But how many people, Sean, do that? How many people literally go, I need to get to know my body, and they're like, I listen to my body. I'm like, okay, what you're doing and how you're looking and what your health is, you need to rip that ear off and put a new ear on, because you're listening to your body with the wrong ear. I think people really need to learn to not be distracted by things in life, and really go and find out who they are, get to know yourself. So when it comes to improving your health, you're honest to yourself. When I have consultations with people, it feels like people are acting like they're being graded. I'm like, you're not in a classroom. I'm not giving you a C-. Just be honest with me. Tell me the truth, because I can't help you unless you're completely forthright and honest. And once I find out that, they're like, well, they'll say, yeah, I work out. Now, when I start to ask, they'll have injuries. And then I'll ask, what are you doing to try to rectify these issues? What are you doing to try to give yourself self-therapy or self-care? And then you find out that they're not really exercising that often. They're not sleeping very often. They're not eating properly. They're going back to junk all the time. So those things have to be corrected first before going to trying to deal with an injury. So something like mine, I can kill it and I can crush the game with a knee that every orthopedic doctor is like, oh, it's the worst thing they've ever seen. And I'm just like, I find my way. I mean, I've cried years about how much pain I'm in, but I find exactly how to balance that pain, when to get off the leg, like even how I work out in my living room, I can still build muscle on that leg, even though it's atrophied more than the other leg. You can still build muscle, but it's like you have to tinker at it very carefully every day of your life and never give up. So that's how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. A lot of people do sort of, when you ask them about their habits, they always tend to sort of overinflate how much they do and under recognize the sort of the negative things they do. I mean, we see it all the time. And then when they take a critical look and they say, well, and then some people say, it's too hard. Maybe it's too hard. Well, then, maybe you've got what you've got because of what your expectations are. So let me ask you, you keep referring to, I think you say you call it Sharona. I guess are you a bit skeptical about the sort of the virus reaction? And, I mean,
a billion %.
Yeah.
And I don't talk about it much online. I make, sort of joking references. It's very serious. What makes me most appalled is the fact that they are not telling people to take care of their health for any reason. For Sharona, I call it Charade-a-Rona, to be honest. And because fear tactics, they're working. I mean, there are helicopters flying over where I live right now because of all of the destruction that went on last night here. And this is pent up young people exploding, not necessarily over the event that happened, right, with this guy and the police, but because of being stuck inside. I get in my car and I drive over to the mountains, the edge of Burbank, which I'm sure you might know where the Burbank area is. It's a big horse territory, and almost nobody wears the freaking muzzles out there. And the ranch that I'm at is owned by an older couple in their 70s, and they don't believe in this either, and believe in what they're doing with it. People don't know if they haven't isolated genetic material, but that's a whole nother subject. But when it comes to, so there's 70-year-olds who own it. They come all the time. They don't live on the property. They rent they rent everything, these freaking people. They rent the front house to another couple who are in their 70s. They come back all the time. Then one of the women's in her 70s. She's a freaking chain smoker. There's a woman with kids. Everybody's around other people. We all conjugate constantly. There's 15 people there. No one's gotten sick. How can that be? Nobody. So 2 of the women have daughters, and the freaking hospitals are empty, and they're getting laid off, and all this kind of stuff. So I'm very suspicious and doubtful. And I definitely believe that these things don't work at all. There's no science proving that it does. And people here in Hollywood get so twisted. If you walk in, like yesterday I was at Trader Joe's, right? And I ran into a friend, and she's like, "Hey, Steph, how you doing?" And she's like motioning me to get like 6 feet apart from her. And I'm just laughing. People are comfortable with those muzzles on. They feel like, I always say in my videos, and I've said this on YouTube, it feels like it's a baby blanket, like a jacket on a cold day. It's like, I feel so cozy. And I'm like, but you can't breathe. Y'all can't breathe, and you can't breathe. And there's issues with not breathing. And even my guy, who's he's the tech guy of, he works at a studio, which isn't going on now, really. So I film from home, and he was filming my live streams, and he's 48 years old. Sean, he's like, because Sean, I'm thinking about moving to Texas. I'm not even kidding. I'm tired of this crap. I'm done. Stick a fork in me. I am done with this stuff. And nobody's telling anyone how to be more healthy. You got all these people running around with muzzles on. Kids here, they're getting the emails. The kids have to be 6 feet apart. They can't play. The toys have to be, they can't play. They have to have their toy station. The kids can't touch. Kids can't touch, and the toys can't touch. And I was like, what? I can't with this. It makes me sick. So you see, I'm pretty blunt. It makes me sick. I'm completely disgusted, but I'm not shocked. And what scares me the most is how sheeple people become when, oops, I'm just like, I've never spoken this honestly. Because, you know, people believe in something, you can't take away what they believe. It's like you're scaring them. And anybody who reacts, like we call him the Greek guy because he likes that name because he's from Greece. I mean, he has a meltdown. I called him a slave the day before yesterday. He got so mad at me, and sometimes things slip out of my mouth, Sean. That's why some people don't like me. They're like, we don't like that girl, Stephanie. And I called him a slave, and he got so mad. I was like, oops. It literally slipped out because he's like, you need to leave your apartment with a muzzle on. He didn't say muzzle. I'm not saying these words. You need to leave with a muzzle. And he was yelling at me. You need to do what they tell you to do. And I said, okay, you be broke. And I said, you get your vaccination. I'll be living off in Texas where they got iron on the side. I'll be good. Thank you very much. Oh, so now you know what I think. You guys out there, don't hate me for this. We all have our own opinion. But no, I'm like, you can breathe on me, you can fart on me. I am not afraid of any charade Rona at all. At all. 0%. That's what I think.
All right. Well, so I'm glad you didn't hold back there. That's good to hear that. You know, and I do think an opportunity that we don't hear, you know, this is one of many things we could shoot to get people healthier, to actually take an actual concern about what they put in their mouth and how they treat their bodies. But no, it's just, you know, slap on a mask, hide in your home, and, you know, wait for a vaccine, which, you know, I mean, whether those things are beneficial or work or not are besides the point. I mean, I think it's more important that we get people healthier, and, you know, that's too hard. You know, how dare we tell people to stop eating donuts and you know, Krispy Kreme and that sort of stuff. It's just, you know, it's kind of sad anyway. But yeah, I know Texas, you know, like I said, I lived in Texas for a long time. I certainly think Texas is a great place, you know, particularly, I think that central corridor around Austin through down to San Antonio, and then some of the hill country around that. It's just, in my view, if you're going to live in Texas, that's where you ought to go. I've lived on Galveston.
That's where I'm talking to a real estate agent right now in that area. Now, to be quite frank, I was thinking about that before because I have a horse. Yeah. And Sean, I just got really bored here in LA. I'm tired of actors. Like, I'm going to an audition. I can't anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm bored. It's like I've lived here. I moved from Sweden right here, Gothenburg, Sweden. And, you know, I'm not the crazy cat lady who's turned into the crazy horse lady. I'm not at all. I needed a reason to get outside and be out in nature. And living here in the Hollywood, I was getting tired of it. And I wasn't trying to buy, I rescued him. I was just going to lease a horse. And then I just sort of, I just really love this experience to be outside. And then there's this horse that needed rescuing, and then I bought him, and the rest is history. And I don't like getting out an animal and sell him 2 years later. So I was thinking, like, I want my own property. It's too expensive here. And I'm sick of these taxes. So maybe I'll move to Texas. But now, after this has happened, all the stuff that's going on with the rioting and with the Sharona. And I just want to say about that real quickly. I want to 100% agree that if people would take care of themselves and get to know who they are and stop being distracted by the foolery and fakery of plastic crap in our new society and live a good, healthy life, even if they decide to eat carbs, I don't care, then they would not be afraid, and they wouldn't be running towards any type of, you know, please save me from the scary monster. And that's what it's about. If there is something that's going on and it is crazy, which it's not because the numbers have shown that it's not. But anyway, being healthy, because it's normal to have viruses throughout history of humanity. And that's what I think on that.
Well, Stephanie, we've gone through our hour we typically do. I appreciate so much. It's been a pleasure actually getting to speak to you. Like I said, I kind of admired your stuff from several years now. I thought you were always an inspiring role model. I appreciate you coming into our little community and giving us a little talk here. So we'll, like I said, put this up on our YouTube channel here in the near future. And then hopefully, you know, I don't know, maybe I get to meet you in person at some point, before you head out to Texas. Like I said, we're contemplating leaving California sometime too, just because of the craziness. And I just moved out here. I haven't been here that long, so I've kind of.
And where are you located?
So I'm in Laguna Hills, down in Orange County. So not
Yeah,
too far.
I would love to meet you. I'm not going to
Sure.
move for another 6 months. It's going to take a minute.
Yeah,
But
hopefully.
anytime I could come down, meet you,
Yeah,
and
have a little barbecue, something like that. Yeah, we can do that. That'd be great. Awesome.
And I want to say, Sean, I'm so proud of what you've done. Like I said, it's very bizarre. I don't care if they talk about people who started before. You are the person that freaking kicked this thing into high gear. And I'm sure when everybody was going like, he's crazy, you should be very, very proud of yourself. If it wasn't for you, I would have never done this. It's all you. I would give you all credit. All you.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people came before me, and I'd be sort of being disingenuous to take full credit. But like I said, I have come up and been very vocal about it, and most people still think I'm crazy, quite honestly. But there's less than it used to be. It used to be 99.9. Now it's only 99% of people think I'm crazy. But we're getting there. We're getting there, guys.
You know what? I don't mind this image. I'm rebellious by nature, and there are a lot of people out there that don't like me because I really just say it like I mean it. And I think it's good to be crazy by the 90%. I don't want to be normal because I've never lived my life like that. And I'm sure you haven't either. And we're both in our 50s and we're killing the game, and we're showing our generation that you don't have to put our asses out to pasture and follow some type of, horrible, dogmatic image of what people should be as we get older. We're showing people that we can live really great, vivacious, healthy lives and be stronger and fitter than we've ever been.
Wonderful. Well, now I'm motivated to go get a good workout in after hearing you talk. So awesome, guys. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. I'm going to close this one down. And you guys, wait, before I do, tell people where they can find out about you, how they can get a hold of you if they want to do a consultation with you, that type of stuff, real quick before we go.
Yeah, you can find me at stephanieperson.com. My last name is actually Person, and spelled like a person. And my name is, thank you, whoever put the link there. You can also follow me on Instagram, which is Stephanie Ketogenic. And I'm going to change all these damn names because I'm just Stephanie, so I'm tired of it. And my Facebook page is Stephanie the Business, as in the body business. They named me, I didn't. The Stephanie the Business Person on Facebook, and I offer a course where I cover people who do low carb, high fat, transitioning to keto into carnivore. So it's just a course that covers everything for those don't know where to start, and that's also at stephanieperson.com. That's it.
Okay, guys, thank you. We'll see everybody tomorrow. I think we got, I want to encourage people tomorrow just that are here. Mike Calcrate is coming on. You guys don't know who Mike is. He can give us a real deal on what's going on with the meat industry, because he's been
right.
He's done a class action lawsuit against the meat packers. He's been in this game for 30 years. He has some very, very interesting perspective on what's going on. So I think if you guys are interested in this at all, I'm tremendously interested because I want to know what's going to be happening to our food supply over the next coming years and protecting that. So I think hopefully you guys will tune in. Okay.
You guys have to tune into that.
All right, guys. Thanks again. And then I'm glad they came and tuned in on this one. So we did well. So thanks, Stephanie. You guys have a great day out. I'm going to shut it down. You guys take care and go do something fun today and do something tough. All right. See you later.
Yes,
guys.
I'm going to ride my horse. Thank you, Sean.
Bye-bye, guys.